This video was made possible by my patrons at patreon.com/sunnylandprods.
Remain seated, please. Permanecer sentados, por favor.
Stupid balloon.
Good morning, it's New Year's, good morning!
Happy New Year, everyone! So, the Season 2 finale of The Ghost and Molly McGee is almost upon us. We still don't know if Disney is going to renew the show for a third season or not, and I was contemplating making a video that would dive into my theories as to what's going on, but honestly, I think the long and short of it is that things are still up in the air because things are still getting back to normal after the WGA and SAG-AFTRA strikes put everything on pause, and there's the looming possibility of an animation strike this year. But as of right now, Disney is still saying that this is the season finale and not the series finale. So the best thing any of us can do as fans of the show is just continue our support for it in whatever ways that we can. And with that out of the way, let's talk about Season 2. I've already done plenty of analysis on Season 2 as it's been airing, and any relevant videos will be linked in the cards above and in a playlist I'll link to at the end. I'll probably start doing some reviews of individual episodes I haven't talked about yet down the road, but today I'm going to be just a little bit critical and talk about some of the issues I have with this season.
Second act still needs work.
Let's start with something that I actually don't think is an issue, and that is Andrea. I've seen a handful of fans complain that she's gotten the short end of the stick this season, and I just don't agree with that. While she's not been in as many episodes as Libby or even Ollie, she's still had plenty of time to shine. A period piece was all about strengthening the bond between Molly, Libby, and Andrea, and Davenport's On Demand and Davenport's in Demise were basically a 2-episode character arc for her. Compare that to the Chens, who, aside from Ollie, haven't had a ton of screen time since their introduction. We saw them in action during Frightmares on Main Street, they were a pretty big focus of Welcome to Necrocomic-Con, and they've had small appearances in a few other episodes, but that's pretty much it. I don't actually have a huge problem with this when it comes to Ruben and Esther, but it's really frustrating how little screen time June has gotten. She's great every single time she's on screen, and obviously Ollie's gonna have more screen time than her because she usually hangs out with Daryl, but we don't ever see her at school with Daryl.
Hey, June, looks like Daryl's about your age. You'll have a built-in friend at school.
Does she even go to this school? This could just be because all of the other episodes where Daryl's at school either directly involve Scratch and or before she knows about him, or they don't really involve any background characters like in Game On. I hate to say it because I loved everything with Libby in that episode, but we already got a whole episode where Libby was a part of a scheme with Daryl. I feel like June could have taken Libby's place there. It would also just be really interesting to see June in school for obvious reasons I'll be going into when I talk about neurodivergent representation next month. Even in the grand gesture, she and Daryl don't have nearly as much screen time as Molly's A-plot, which is really funny to me because the way that the episode synopses were done, the grand gesture synopsis actively spoiled that June was going to find out about Scratch before Welcome to Necrocomic-Con, seemingly just because they didn't want to spoil the Molly plot in the episode. By the way, if you're like me and really want to see June and Libby being friends, you should totally go read my friend Samuel's fanfic over on AO3. Link is in the description. And speaking of Molly, I have absolutely zero complaints about them. They're so gosh darn cute, they just make me happy. Also, this is more of a nitpick that's not really the show's fault, but White Christmas and Perfect Day were written right after Frightmares on Main Street, but ended up being moved around so that they could actually air before Christmas. White Christmas is all about the McGees creating a winter wonderland for the seniors and their families. But you know who's noticeably absent? Grandma Nin. Yeah, remember? She moved to Brighton? She's supposed to be living at the retirement home? And speaking of unexplained absences, Ollie is nowhere to be seen in Perfect Day. I don't buy that Molly's Perfect Day wouldn't possibly include spending time with her new boyfriend, but again, this episode was written before the grand gesture was. So my headcanon is that the Chens actually went back to New York for Christmas and New Year's, and that's why they're not in that episode. What I can't justify though is the way rare curses are mentioned in this episode like it's the first time.
Well, maybe there's something in here.
Molly, I told you that Rare Curses book is for the chairman's eyes only.
Oh, I need a do-over. Is there a way to hit restart?
Nope.
Actually, there is. As chairman, you have access to rare curses.
Rare curses? horses?
I don't know how late in production this episode was shuffled around. I guess maybe it was too late to change this. I don't know. Anyways, I think Scratch's arc with finding out about his past has continued to be handled very well, and we should get a nice conclusion to that in the end. But of course, before the end, we have Jinx versus the human world. And while Jinx is fun whenever we do see her, it's kind of hard to take her seriously as this impending threat when everything she's done, namely trying to sabotage Scratch's friendship with Jeff and jinxing him, has all been very, very petty, and that's about it. Not only that, but outside of her vision board, there hasn't really been any tease of an impending threat with her. Compare that to everything with the chairman and how the joy rising in Brighton was often foreshadowed. I definitely do think this could have been handled better. Even just having her show up briefly in a few more episodes would have gone a long way in terms of establishing the building conflict. Of course, I haven't seen Jinx versus the human world at the time of writing this, so I don't know how things wrap up, but obviously we know it's going to be the culmination of both everything with Jinx and everything with the Chens. And by the way, my prediction for Jinx versus the human world, again having not seen it, is that Jinx is the ghost who scared Ruben. And that brings me to the main theme of this season, the theme of change. Things like confronting an uncomfortable or difficult past, moving forward in the wake of having your whole world or worldview turned upside down, and things that generally just come with growing up. And that's something I really appreciate about this show in comparison to, say, Phineas and Ferb, where the status quo pretty much never changes. The first episode of the season is called The New Paranormal, and it sets the stage for the rest of the season. Every single major arc, and quite a few of the more standalone episodes, tie into these themes. Scratch is forced into a role he doesn't want, and has to learn how to manage it regardless. Molly, Libby, and Andrea are all getting older and are dealing with things like first loves, periods, and tween hormones.
Ew.
Grandma Nin is getting older and has to contend with the fact that she can't live on her own anymore. Andrea has to deal with her family's department store being put out of business and has to try and figure out who she is and what her place in the world is without that. Ollie and Jinx were both absolutely certain of their place in the world and how things were supposed to be. Ollie hated ghosts and Jinx hated humans. Molly came into their lives and turned everything upside down. Both of them were resistant to that change, Jinx having no interest in changing her worldview, even when pretty much every other ghost was completely on board with not having to do scare reports and generate misery. Ollie ultimately came around thanks to Molly, and then had to come to terms with a past he's now ashamed of. And speaking of uncomfortable pasts, Scratch finds himself confronted with a past he had forgotten. He tries to repress the memories of his long-lost friend, but it all bubbles to the surface, literally. So, as you can probably tell, my minor complaints didn't stop me from loving the heck out of this season, and I'm stoked for the finale. The Ghost and Molly McGee continues to be such an absolute joy to watch. Season 2 has had all of the silliness, fun, and insanity of Season 1, while giving us new characters and dynamics, changes to the status quo, interesting and dynamic character arcs, and episodes that handle serious topics in very genuine and sincere ways. All while still making you laugh. I don't know what the future holds for Molly and Scratch, but I'm so grateful that we've been able to get to know them over the last couple of years. This show is truly something special, and I think the world is just a little brighter because of it. Hey guys, Chandler here. Thank you so much for watching. Like I said at the beginning, this video was made possible by my patrons over at patreon.com/sunnylandprods. If you like my videos and want to help me out, just $1 a month gets you access to every video I make 1 week early, as well as your name in the credits of every single video. And $3 a month gets you access to all of that, plus fun bonus content like behind the scenes stuff and outtakes. That's patreon.com/sunnylandprods.